Thank you. Good morning. Some of you, it's your first trip to our new city center. 601 City Center Way. Francie, thank you. Thank you, our Parks and Recs department, our Public Works, of course, our fire department, our first responders, our police department, great people, and all of you and our veterans. Today is a happy day, right? Today we honor our veterans and their families. Let's not forget the families who sacrifice as well. I'm going to just read an article, many articles about today, but this one, as I read it this morning, really got to me. I want to share it with you. Jennifer Madden was a specialist in the Army who deployed to Afghanistan as a teenager. When she returned, this high performer caught a long journey with unemployment and homelessness to achieve independence and self-reliance. Jen bought her first home in 2014, earned her degree as a licensed practical nurse, and now shares her story of hope as a psychiatric nurse, specializing in drug and alcohol rehabilitation at a Veterans Administration hospital in Pennsylvania. Good for her. And let me tell you, I know you know it, but this city is so dedicated to veterans. We have job fairs. We have an ordinance that said if you have a veterans business, and in our city you get a 5% point calculator for it. So we're all about helping our veterans. And you can see all the many veterans here in our city who come out every time for these great ceremonies. So again, I'm happy about today, and I can't wait to hear our speakers. So have a great day. Pastor?
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's my honor now to share the invocation. If you would like to join me in the invocation, I invite you to bow your head with me at this time. Eternal God, we come to this beautiful place today that is a place of honor, because we come here today to recognize, to celebrate, and to thank the men and women who have served in our armed forces. Brave soldiers, sailors, Marines, Airmen, Coast Guardmen, all who have raised their right hand and promised to defend this country against all enemies, both foreign and domestic. They did so with hearts of patriotism. And that patriotism was proven in their dedicated and sacrificial service to our country. How can we ever thank them? We just pray today that as we conduct this ceremony, that you will be part of it, and that you will resonate your spirit with the spirit of everyone here, and especially the veterans, in understanding and embracing the idea that we do love them, we respect them, and we are so thankful for every single one of them. So bless this time of honor and everything that is done. In your holy name we pray. Amen. Amen. Would you please rise for the presentation of the colors by the Pembroke Pines Police and Fire Honor Guard. Please remain standing through the Pledge of Allegiance and the National Anthem. Present the colors. Who's going to come and share our national anthem.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. You may be seated. Would you please welcome again to the podium the Honorable Frank Ordus, Mayor of Pembroke Pines.
Thank you again. Let me introduce first our commission. Vice Mayor Angelo Castillo. Commissioner Monroy. Commissioner Jay Schwartz. Commissioner Iris Seipel. Broward County Mayor. She thinks that's a bigger title than the mayor. See? Broward County Mayor Barbara Sharif. State Representative Richard Stark, who now is the Vice Chair, just elected, of the Broward delegation. Representative, good to see you. Chief Justino, welcome. And the gentleman who keeps us all safe, Sam Gorman. We love you, Sam. All right, so I've got Tom Good, South Broward Drainage District. Is Patty Good, school board member? Jim Ryan, South Broward Drainage District. Rob Goggins, you're here? All right, look at that. Nice to see. South Broward Drainage District. Okay, Francie? Vice Mayor, would you like to come up?
Thank you very much and welcome all of you. This is the first year that we're having Veterans Day in this beautiful new park. And I just think it's fantastic. All of the statuary, all of the bricks that we have bought were moved with care. There's only one chip in one brick. And no, they did a wonderful, wonderful job. And it's great that we're going to have this park for many, many years to come to celebrate these events. I had a breakfast with Sergeant Major, who's going to come up and speak soon, and we talked about all of the wonderful things that are happening here in Broward County regarding veterans, and he'll have more to say about that. But there was a story in the news that I hope you all paid attention to. A homeless veteran came to our area because there's an organization here where he needed to apply for housing. And while he was here, he heard, didn't see it, he heard a horrible accident. And he ran, his instincts kicked in right away. He was a medic in the service. And he ran toward that car. And it was a terrible crash. And the driver was in pretty tough shape. And he held that driver's head so as to not allow him to injure himself, his neck. And there was a concern that even the driver said, this car could go on fire any minute. And his response was, if this car goes on fire, we're both going, but I ain't moving. Now, he may have had some tough breaks, but I wrote to our city manager that day and I said, if that man, I don't care what his background is, if that man was capable of that act, he belongs in our city. He belongs in our city. That man belongs in our city. He should have a job in our city, and I'm proud to call him a neighbor. And I'm hopeful that that's exactly what's going to happen. With veterans, all gave some, and some gave all. And I'm not mixing Veterans Day with Memorial Day, but what we do is what shows the gratitude for the people who have served our country. Not just having these events and saying thank you, but it's how we live our lives as Americans to make sure that the beautiful, wondrous rights and privileges that we have in the United States, that they are the blanket of protection for, is lived out in the proper way. And I'm so proud that here, at least in Pembroke Pines, Florida, whatever else may go on in the United States, here in our home, where we put our heads down on our pillows with our families, things do make sense. So God bless you all, and thank you for being here.
All right, thank you, Vice Mayor. Before we go on, I just want to take a moment of silence for Lou Manfra. This is the first year he's not here. You remember what he did as a volunteer? Moment of silence for our great, great friend, Lou Manfra. Thank you. And I have not forgotten our Congresswoman. I'm going to do our special introduction when she comes up, so I have not forgotten her. Okay, Commissioner Seipel, that's you.
The mayor fooled me. Started on the other end. It's okay. First off, thank you all for being here today. It is always an honor to be able to come together to share some good things. And today, as the mayor has said, should not be a sad day. Memorial Day is enough to be a sad day on. But today being a Veterans Day and remembering veterans should be a very happy day, and we should think about all of the good things that these veterans have provided for us, for our children, for our grandchildren, by their devotion and their many sacrifices that they all have made for us. So, Mayor, thank you for mentioning Lou Manfra. I actually was going to make sure that we did. For those of you that knew Lou, you know he was always out here, and this was one of his proudest moments when all the different branches of the armed services are recognized, and they mentioned the Coast Guard, because I think he was the only member of the Coast Guard that we have here. So he was very proud to be able to stand up and give his Yahoo for the, for the Coast Guard. So he is, yes. For those of us that knew him for a very long time, we used to call him Sweet Lou. So Sweet Lou, today is a special day for you in our hearts here. Normally I talk about not only how we respect and honor and remember the veterans for what they have done for us, but I always want to bring up the families of those veterans, and how while the veterans certainly have their issues and everything that they go through, we also need to think about the families and what those families went through while they were serving, and now while they are back, when times are a little bit tough for them, and what those families have to try and continue to support and be positive and look for all of the amenities and everything that they need. So again, I would ask you all to please also, while you're thinking of the veterans, to remember also those families of the vets that are just as important. I had an opportunity this past week to attend a couple of school events where, in fact, at elementary school level, they were talking about Veterans Day. And I think that's so important that I bring that up to you, because it is teaching our young folks about what red, white, and blue really stands for, and what it means, and how we got to where we are. And if we don't continue to teach our young folks about about what happened and how we got to where we are, those things will be forgotten, and that will be an absolute shame for any part of history to be forgotten, because we failed to continue teaching our young folks about it. So this week, while I was able to attend a couple of these events where it was elementary school, and these darling, I call them little pumpkins. All these darling little pumpkins were lined up, and they had their red, white, and blue on, and they were waving their flags, and they were singing songs. The most important part was that they were being taught about what red, white, and blue means, and what veterans have done for us, and how we need to have that respect and that remembrance of it. And they put on a little performance. And now remember, these are elementary school aged children. They wrote some poems, and actually they wrote a song, and their chorus sang a song, and we'll get to that part some other time. But I wanted to read this particular poem by a young lady. Her name is Miss Brooks. She is in 4th grade, so that would make her about 10 years old, perhaps. Okay. And this is her poem, so please listen very carefully to the words of this 4th grade student. She titled it, My Heroes. Thank you for your service, for defending our land, making sure that we're safe, and for taking a stand. You do great things and are respected by all. Thank you for making sure that our country will never fall. You stand by red, white, and blue, and we're never in danger because of you. You are my heroes in every way. Thank you for protecting us every day. And I just thought that that was so phenomenal for a fourth grade student to be able to put those words together. But what it really means is that either there are family members or in her school, her teachers, someone who is making it important to these young folks that they remember what Veterans Day is about and how we need to be respectful and we need to be thankful and we need to continue that tradition of teaching and bringing forward all of these things that America stands for. So again, thank you all for being here today. Oh, I would be remiss, Mayor, if I did, I know you're going to talk about others, but I'd be remiss if I didn't tell you, my husband Mark is here today, and he is an Army veteran, the Vietnam era, and he is here with all of his stuff on. So thank you for being here, and thank you to all that are here. We appreciate it. Thank you.
All of his stuff. Just thought I'd say that. Commissioner Jay Schwartz.
Thank you, Mayor, and good afternoon, everyone. Veterans, thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. You know, retired Commissioner Carl Schechter is not here today. It's the first time that we didn't have a World War II veteran sitting with us as part of the City Commission. But I want to thank him, even though he's not here, I want to thank him and the entire World War II generation for saving the world. You know, looking back on, just on a quick personal note, looking back at my family, it's about 75 years this year that my grandfather went into the Army, and 75 years that his brother, my great uncle, signed up for the Navy. And I can tell you that we're going to hear a lot about Mission United, but I want to give a shout out to an organization that is bringing veterans from the World War II era and the Korean War up to Washington, D.C., and that's the Honor Flight. Folks, if you haven't seen the Honor Flight, if you have not, I guarantee you, tears will be flowing at whichever airport, Fort Lauderdale or Miami International, when these heroes come home. And so please, check them out and support the organization. You know, my brother was in the Air Force, served in the Vietnam era. And there's another pilot that served in World War II in this area that many may not know. And that's former President George H.W. Bush. He trained right here, before our city was even founded, he trained right here just east of where we're at. And the World War II generation set the standard of what it means to be an American patriot. They came home and we celebrated them. We supported them. We gave them everything that they could possibly have. Now today, we have returning vets who are desperately looking for work, housing, or gainful employment. We as the city of Pembroke Pines, as the mayor mentioned, are doing everything we can as a city to support those efforts. But we need more. I want to thank each and every veteran who's here. I want to thank those who are serving in state and federal government. We are in a trying time in today's global world. And now more than ever, we need to come together, stand for freedom, and make sure that our U.S. Constitution and our Declaration of Independence is the beacon of light for the world. Thank you so much. God bless.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Schechter is actually in the Coast Guard today. He's on a cruise. Sorry, Coast Guard, right? Cruise? Okay, our newly elected commissioner, Commissioner Monroy.
That was a great shout out to the Coast Guard. Good way to reference it. Since the founding of our nation, Americans have stood up to defend the freedoms that we hold dear. Since the beginning of the flying of this flag, folks have taken the initiative to stand up and say that we will not let freedom fall in this great nation. And when they come home, we as a society have historically not done right by them and done what is necessary to reward them for their sacrifice. This great city continues to have initiative to make sure veterans are brought back and have the ability to work, to play, to live, and to return to the lives that they left when they left to sacrifice for us. It's important that all of us continue that mission that this city has to ensure folks are integrated back into our great society and that they are thanked for everything they have done. It's very easy to say thank you to a veteran, and it is important that we do. But it's so much more important that beyond the simple thanks, that we give more and give them an opportunity to continue forward with what their lives and dreams were before they took that oath to serve. And I'm the proud son of a veteran. My wife is here, who's also the daughter of a retired veteran. And we have grown up on military bases and have seen what it is for families to sacrifice for their veteran to serve. And I want to take a moment and thank the families who are here today, who have said to your veteran, I love you, I hope you come back home, and when you're home, I will be here for you. That means everything in the world to them. And for all of us here today, we need to make sure that we spread that message beyond just these tents, and we remind folks, our veterans are the reason we're here today. They will be the reason that we are here tomorrow. And without them, the freedom that we fight for every day will not stand. So I thank you for being here today, for showing the initiative to say thank you to them, and let's continue to say thank you to all who have served. Thank you.
I want to give a quick shout out to my son, Chris. He couldn't be here today because he's a deputy, bomb dog deputy at the sheriff's office, but he flew the MH-53 for 10 years. That's that big, big helicopter, 100 feet long, 4-foot refueling boom in the front. We had a Veterans Day ceremony several years ago when he was in the Navy, and I asked him if he could bring the helicopter. He said, yeah, I can bring it. I'm not going to be able to bring the helicopter. So we're all preparing at North Perry Airport, and sure enough, I get a call from the tower, your son's in the air with the helicopter. I said, well, okay, we're not ready yet. Have him go down Pines Boulevard. Because we have Crescent Airways going to take pictures. So he does, but he only goes down about 100 feet. And this big, huge helicopter, all the alarms are going off. Century Village, remember, they're calling me, what's going on? And I hadn't seen him in like 6 to 8 months. And he comes out of the helicopter with his gear on and everything. And of course, old daddy, a little choked up there. But anyway, my son, I'm proud of him. All right, it gives me great pleasure now to introduce my personal Congresswoman, Debbie Wasserman Schultz. And let me tell you a little bit about Congresswoman Schultz. Long tenure, as we know, State House and Congress. But I'm part of a group that goes to lobby Congress twice a year on behalf of all of the cities that need services and need things for our cities from the federal government. And I've got to tell you, not a lot of Congress people meet with us. They have staff to meet with us. But I'll tell you about Congresswoman Schultz. She's always met with our committee people. We appreciate that. So without further ado, great Congresswoman from the 23rd.
Thank you so much. Mayor Ortiz, thank you very much for your kind words and your compliment, and it is something that I make a priority. If you as an elected official, all of you, and I've met with multiple combinations of all of you as you've come to Washington, if you're taking the time out of your schedules to come to the nation's capital and raise the priorities and the concerns of our mutual constituents, then it is the least that I can do to take the time to hear them from you directly. Even though we have an opportunity to see each other here, very often in our community, but farming out my job is not how I roll. So you can continue to count on me, both here in the district and in Washington. And to the new commissioner, Izzy, good to see you. Congratulations. It was great being out there with you in the community on the trail, and it's wonderful to see you here and to see you have been elected. Although actually technically you're not quite elected yet, are you? Yeah, appointed and then eventually elected. It is such a privilege to be able to be here once again, and I just want to ask you all to take a moment and look around at what some might think is trivial, but look at the effort that went into the City of Pembroke Pines ceremony to honor our veterans on Veterans Day. This is not just some slapped together, put a podium in front of an audience and, say hooray for our veterans. This city makes a significant commitment every single year to make sure that if there's no other day in the year when we honor our veterans, we're going to make sure that you know it and that you feel that appreciation in the city of Pembroke Pines. It's my biggest city in my congressional district, and it's a real privilege to represent. And I'm going to claim a little credit here, and the credit that I'm going to claim is for that tent that is finally over the band, because every year I kind of give you an appeal. Those kids are out there in the broiling sun, Dana, and thank God we're keeping them undercover this time. So, exactly. So, Francie, it's white, it's right, exactly. Having spent many years in the broiling sun in my elementary, middle school, well, junior high then, and high school band, I know that these kids appreciate it, and you guys did a really good job, as you always do. So thank you. I want to take a few minutes and some points of personal privilege to be able to take my opportunity to honor our nation's veterans. I mean, of course, we have parades and praise and silent reflection on this very special and important day, and that never really seems to be enough. These are important tributes, but frankly, we can't utter them enough, and we cannot repay the debt that our nation's veterans have given to us, and so we have to commit to do more. And I'm going to ask, I know at a certain point in the ceremony, each of the service members and the division of the military that they represent will be asked to stand. But I actually just want to take a minute and ask any of our Vietnam veterans that are here to please stand. And because of how shameful it was that we treated you when you came home from service, it is imperative that we double down and make it up to you and honor your remarkable and incredible service, because we can't thank you enough. So I'm doubling down on Vietnam veterans today. Thank you all so much. I'm proud to say in Washington, not only to represent you every day, but particularly because I have a unique and special role now as a member of Congress, because this year I became the ranking member of the Military Construction and Veterans Affairs Appropriations Subcommittee. The shorthand version of that is that I'm responsible for the budget with the chairman and our committee members for the entire budget for the military construction that we do around the world, as well as our entire budget for the VA. And that means that it's the only committee in Congress that focuses on the entire life cycle that a member of our military spends from when they enter our military service through their retirement from military service, when they become a veteran and they join the ranks of veterans and get service at our VA. As part of that role, I traveled this year to South Korea to ensure that our fighting women and men based in one of the world's most delicate geopolitical climates have the tools that they need to be prepared and handle these evolving threats. And we can see before our very eyes just how evolutionary the situation is in Korea. I was in the demilitarized zone, standing right across from the North Koreans, and it's truly bone-chilling. The fight tonight mentality of our military in that zone is truly remarkable. In addition, this summer I also met with our NATO allies in Europe to reaffirm our nation's commitment to protecting America's vital interests and crucial military bases throughout that region. In addition to these global responsibilities, we have 21 million veterans living across the United States. We have more than 1.5 million veterans living in our state, the third largest number of veterans of any state in the country, including more than 30,000 veterans living right here in Florida's 23rd Congressional District. So it is our duty as Americans to ensure that these veterans can access the benefits and the services that they so rightly deserve and have richly earned, including comprehensive health care services, employment, and educational opportunities, and especially support for their families, because their families served too. One of the most urgent missions on this front is raising a voice for the many voiceless veterans among us. Nearly 1 in 10 homeless Americans is a veteran. Let that sink in for a minute. Nearly 1 in 10. And while we've made progress, we've actually seen a 47% decline since 2010 in our homeless veteran population. There remains much more that we need to do. And we must also continue to raise our voices on behalf of our veterans that are struggling with mental illness. Far too many of them are struggling with mental illness. The numbers are truly shocking. As many as 20 veterans die by suicide every day in this country, every day. That's 7,300 former service members a year. We're making progress here as well, but this is something that we absolutely have to make a personal commitment to solving. 2 years ago, Congress passed legislation requiring the Veterans Administration to establish a 24-hour toll-free suicide hotline for veterans. It was hard to imagine for me how we didn't have one of those already. But this year, I was among those on our subcommittee who expressed concern and made sure and demanded that our veterans have consistent access to qualified professionals at the other end of that veterans crisis line. It is so crucial that we make sure that we take PTSD and mental health challenges that our veterans return with very, very seriously. And then, seemingly on the more trivial side, but very serious when you are trying and having waited a long time to get a healthcare appointment, a medical appointment at the VA Medical Center, and you drive around in a frustrating, constant circle to look for a parking space. How many of you get healthcare from the VA Medical Center that are here? And how many of you had a parking problem when you went down there to try to get an appointment? It is, I know, it is infuriating. And imagine my frustration when I learned that it is actually federal law that prohibits the VA from shuttling their employees from a distant parking lot to their jobs. And so as a result, patients have to park far away and employees park up close. And that is certainly not something that employees want, and it makes no sense that federal law actually prohibited that. So I introduced legislation called the Veterans Park Act, which, when we pass the budget by the end of the year, hopefully, will become law, and that ridiculous provision will be a relic of the past, and we'll be able to make sure that parking is more efficient and you're able to get access to your medical appointment and not miss them and be infuriated in addition to your healthcare challenges. I'm also especially proud that Congress took action this year to extend until 2019 the PALS Act, which is legislation that became law that I introduced to help ensure that women have access to mammograms beginning at age 40, which is the medically recommended age. Many of you know I'm a breast cancer survivor, and I was diagnosed at 41. Well, this year, upon taking on this responsibility, I learned that women veterans were not being given routine access to mammography beginning at 40 years old because there is a federal agency that issued guidelines somehow that never made it to the VA. So working with Secretary Shulkin and through introducing legislation that will include women veterans being able to get access to mammography beginning at age 40, now we make sure that those women veterans, our younger women veterans, are going to be able to make sure that early detection helps save their life because we're helping them pay attention to their breast health. Our veterans are unwavering examples of patriotism, and you're proven advocates for all Americans. And today we see more veterans than ever running for elected office, which is absolutely fantastic. In addition, our veterans are 30% of the federal workforce, a perfect example of public service beyond the military. And they are also, of course, 30% of the staff at the VA, helping care for one another upon their return from service, which is not at all a surprise. And that's so crucial now, because as we continue to debate the importance of healthcare as a human right, we can turn to the VA health system as a model of what it means to guarantee care and ensure that those in urban and the most rural parts of our country have access to the providers they need. In Washington and here at home each day, we all must pay the huge debt that we owe to these brave veterans, but we know it's never enough. please know that I will continue to ensure that we care for our veterans and provide them with the benefits, service, and respect that they so deserve. And it is an incredible privilege to represent this community in our nation's capital. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Congresswoman. Once again, my privilege to introduce today our keynote speaker. And I'm particularly excited today about our keynote speaker because, to the best of my recollection, this is the first time that we've had a senior non-commissioned officer as our speaker. And any of us, all of us who have served in any branch of the military, understand fully that it is the non-commissioned officers and the senior non-commissioned officers that really keep the military machine running. They do an amazing job. Sergeant Major retired Kenneth R. Jude is the director of Mission United of the United Way of Broward County in Fort Lauderdale. Prior to Ken's promotion to the Director of Mission United, Ken held the position of Director of Homeless Veterans Reintegration Program at Mission United. Ken recently retired from the United States Army with over 29 years of military service. During his times in the United States Army, Sergeant Major Jude reached the highest levels of military service while serving the country during a difficult time of war and conflict. He is also a seasoned military policeman and multiple combat tour veteran whose most recent combat assignment included a deployment to Afghanistan, working a critical training and assistant mission with the Afghan National Police. His final assignment on active duty included service at the U.S. Army Sergeant Major Academy as an associate professor at Fort Bliss, Texas, where he was responsible for educating future senior enlisted leaders, and I'm sure they profited from your experience. Sergeant Major Jude's military awards include the Legion of Merit, 2 Bronze Stars, and the Combat Action Badge. Sergeant Major is also a recipient of the Military Police Regiment's, I'm going to try this one, the Marechaussee Award? Marechaussee, France, oh. He earned his Bachelor of Science degree from Excelsior College in Liberal Arts, a master's degree, two master's degree, 1 degree in leadership studies from the University of El Paso, and the second a Master of Arts in Higher Education from the University of Louisville, Kentucky. Sergeant Major Jude is the son of a Vietnam veteran, Kenneth Jude Sr. He is married to Vanessa Blanco Jude, who is with us today. Please give her a round of appreciation, of Puerto Rico, and has 4 sons. Tyler Jude, medically retired as a sergeant from the U.S. Army. Ian Jude, a recent graduate and football player at Colorado Mesa University, Grand Junction, Colorado. Ricardo Nieves, a freshman at Nova Southeastern University. I'm also a Shark, I go there too. And Fort Lauderdale. And Rafael Nieves, who was a sophomore at Cooper City High School. Would you please join me in giving a great welcome to Sergeant Major Kenneth Jude.
Thank you. It's really an honor, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Commissioners, and even though our Honorable Congresswoman just left, Debbie Wasserman Schultz, and all of the distinguished guests and our public servants and leaders in the community, and more importantly, our veterans that are in the audience. It's an honor for me, having served 29 years in multiple combat tours across the world, to be able to come and speak on behalf of the Non-Commissioned Officer Corps of the United States Army. As the pastor talked about, you know, it's the NCOs that make it happen. You know, the officers give us the orders. We stand tall. We say, "Hua, victory, sir," and we execute the orders of our officers that have been delegated down from our congressional leaders that tell us to go into harm's way. But the reason I'm here today is I want to talk to you a little bit about transition. Last year, June 1st, 2016, I had a lot of stress in my life. Because for 29 years, I put my boots on, wore my PT clothes, whatever was first for the day. And I had a purpose. That whole day was planned out. Where I needed to be, where I had to have the troops at, what training, what bullets, what food needed to accomplish the task of the day. And then all of a sudden, after about 6.5 months of my retirement paperwork, that day finally came. A lot of stress and a lot of anxiety overwhelmed me because I had a purpose every single day of what I had to do for this nation. Well, I put my applications in. I did probably 150 applications, and I knew that I was coming from Fort Bliss, Texas, to Broward County. I was stationed here with an Army Reserve unit in 2012 and deployed to Afghanistan for 15 months. And when I came back, I knew that I wanted to call this place my home. So I'm sending my resume. I'm trying to network through LinkedIn, through Glassdoor, through ZipRecruiter, all these other things, to try and to say, hey, look, I'm a sergeant major, I have 29 years of leadership experience, and I got zero. So I had a battle buddy. I had a soldier who worked for me, Sergeant First Class. She actually works for the United Way up in Orlando. And they had just started this program up there called Mission United. Well, Priscilla is the director of Mission United up there. Sergeant First Class, retired Army Reserve, is the director of Mission United in Orlando. And she said, Sergeant Major, you got to call United Way of Broward County. They're going to hire. And so I'm like, okay. I knew about United Way. Anybody heard of the combined federal campaign? Yeah. Okay, every year the sergeant major, the first sergeant's out there and say, hey, you got to sign up for this. How much are you going to donate? $15 a month or whatever out of your paycheck. Give it to a non-charitable organization. That's all I knew. Oh, United Way. Yeah, I saw United Way there. Well, I tell you what I've learned about United Way over the last 18 months is really impressive. And because we can say nonprofits, and I've worked with NGOs when I've been deployed downrange in Afghanistan. I've worked with the International Red Cross because two of my biggest missions that I had as a senior non-commissioned officer was dealing with detainees that we captured on the battlefield. And so to come and learn about United Way of Broward County and to have a senior non-commissioned officer that networked me through to this organization, I got hired. I got hired as the director of the Homeless Veteran Reintegration Program, which was a DOL grant that helped homeless veterans find employment. They gave us the tools and the resources to try to help them overcome the barriers. But something more importantly that United Way of Broward County has with Mission United. We have the Supportive Services for Veterans Families grant. It's a $2.1 million grant that every day connects veterans that are at risk of homeless or literally homeless on our streets in Broward County, getting them off the street through a rapid rehousing process into a safe, secure environment where the Department of Labor grant helped them get employment. The SSVF grant helped them get into a secure place with shelter over their head, especially if they had a family. And now I'm learning about all this stuff and what United Way is doing, because United Way, these are services. So when I say that, that's case management. And United Way, if anybody knows anything about United Way and United Way Worldwide, the one thing that they do not do is services. And why do they not do services? Because they're a collaborator, they're a convener. They're the ones that are trying to leverage the resources in the community and support those organizations with funding through donors that can make a difference in community impact with our communities. Well, they made an exception. United Way Worldwide made an exception because they understood the importance of case management and providing services in-house to our veteran population. It's a special population. They have different, and not to be derogatory about any other person, whether they're homeless or not, but they have a different background. They have a different need set. And it's not that they're broken. Not all of our veterans are broken. I have PTSD. I'm a disabled vet. I'm 100% disabled. But I'm a fully functioning, retired Army Sergeant Major that wants to make a difference in my community. And I do that through Mission United. Mission United is a convener. They're a collaborator. You mentioned the Honor Flight. Great organization. And I've gone to 2 of those welcoming homecomings. And I'll tell you right now, this old Sergeant Major was crying. There was tears running down my face because it was so emotional. So emotional to see the Vietnam veterans that were helping orchestrate this. It was the World War II veterans that there's still folks that are on that plane coming back, and the Korean War, the forgotten war. Our heroes from the Korean War that are able to go and see that monument and come back, and it's just amazing. But that's what Mission United does. We try to link the resources that veterans have in the community that can provide a service that is needed by those veterans to help them navigate in their transition. Because I will tell you, my father, as a Vietnam veteran who passed away in 1996, he was still in transitioning until the day he died when he came back from Vietnam. In 1968, April 12th, when I was born, 2 weeks later, my dad deployed to Vietnam. Luckily for me, my dad came back, and I was able to be raised by my father. But I know now, as serving the 29 years, that my dad was transitioning still to the day that he died. So what we do as a community, and to turn this into a good news story, I have never been so proud of an organization that I've worked for than United Way of Broward County. Because I've seen so many people within our community that have come together to support veterans with either time, resources, or blood, sweat, and tears. Because they want to make a difference. They understand that the impact that veterans make in our community is priceless. Because you have a veteran that's tactically proficient in their warrior tasks. They're in a foxhole over in Iraq, being run over almost by the enemy combatants and gunfire. But because of their training and their instinctiveness from that training, they stand fast. They take solid ground. They find the objectives. They communicate effectively across the line of effort, and they assault the objective. They take out the objective. They're able to secure the perimeter. They're able to move forward with their mission and continue the mission. That takes a lot of skill. That takes a lot of heart. And when they come back, they still have a lot to give. When you look at how proficient they were in a duress situation, they have that to give, and not in a combat situation. And one of the things that I sat down with the vice mayor, and I told him, actually I got the honor of meeting both the mayor and the vice mayor at the mayor's gala. And I walked up to him, I said, hey, I just moved to Pembroke Pines in November. I'm a retired Army Sergeant Major, and I'm giving my heart and blood to Mission United and the veterans of Broward County, but I want to do something more. I want to be a part of Pembroke Pines because this is my home. And how can I volunteer? How can I give back to my community?
We're going to make it happen.
Oh, thank you, and I'm ready. Yeah, we got plans. Thank you. But the point that I want to make is that we talked about a lot of things that veterans, and all of you in here, look at how many veterans that you probably know in the community that are leaders, that are successful, that are doing well. And the one thing that I do at Mission United, and this is what I tell people, we are their battle buddy. Because on active duty, we have a battle buddy that helps us navigate. Or if we fall down in a training thing, they're sitting there grabbing our hands, come on, brother, get up. We got to go. They're helping us up. We lose that when we become a civilian. But we haven't lost it because we have organizations all across this county that are willing and do it every day to be the battle buddy of our veterans and help them navigate throughout our community to get intertwined. And one of the things that I've had all my staff do is that I have them get involved in their cities. Because it's not just about United Way of Broward County, it's just not about Mission United, it's about showing the community, and 70% of my staff are veterans that work for me. And so I want them to interject themselves back into the community and show what they have to give. And try to find that piece in their community that they can give back and continue to serve. And it's an honor to be here today. And if anybody would like more information about Mission United, you can go to missionunitedbroward.org, because currently there are 20 Mission Uniteds across the country, and there's about 30 more, hopefully by the end of 2018, to put us over the 50 number of active Mission Uniteds that are just trying to be a collaborator and a convener to help veterans transition in our communities. Again, thank you for allowing me to be here today to speak, and I look forward to great things with this great city.
Thousands of Sergeant Major Judes are the reason that America can boast of the greatest military force on the planet. They are the men and women who really make the machine work. Thank you so much for your service and for your eloquent words. Amazing, inspiring. Thank you. This time we come to one of my favorite parts of this ceremony is when we recognize our veterans. Those who have served proudly in the armed forces of the United States. And I'm going to introduce you by branch of the service. And when I introduce you, if you're physically able, stand. If not, please just wave your hand at us. And so right now, I'd like to recognize all the veterans of the United States Army. Would you please stand? Thank you. I'd like to recognize the veterans, my fellow sailors of the United States Navy. Would you stand? Also like to recognize another amazing group that I also had the privilege of serving with, the United States Marine Corps. By the way, it was the United States Marine Corps' 243rd birthday yesterday. So happy birthday to all our Marines, Semper Fi. Veterans of the United States Air Force. The United States Coast Guard. We've talked about Lou Manfra a lot, who went home to be with the Lord recently, and his service to the Coast Guard. And every year, he would remind me of one more group not to forget. And I don't want him haunting me in my sleep tonight. Let's recognize members of the Merchant Marine. Thank you. Once again, let's give a hand of appreciation and recognition to all of our veterans here today. Once again, as we prepare to close the ceremony today, it's our privilege to hear two more selections from the Pines Charter West Middle School Band under the direction of Dana Cole. One is a medley of the Armed Forces medley, and the other is entitled Hymn to the Fallen. Would you please welcome again this great group of young students, young patriots. Thank you, Dana. Thank you, band members. What a great job you've done. We'll hear one more number from them at the very end as they perform for us the theme from JAG. You know, this is Veterans Day, and we understand that this is a day our country sets aside to recognize those who have served in the armed forces. But I know we who have served in the armed forces have a special place in our heart, as all of you do, for our brothers and sisters in arms and service to this country, and that's our first responders, our police officers and firefighters. Could we recognize them? Would you please stand and be recognized today? Thank you all for what you do for us every day. We really appreciate your service. Just before I share the benediction today, two quick announcements. One is if you want to be a part of the veterans picture today, a gathering of all the veterans, we're going to do that in the 9/11 area. So after this ceremony today, please gather there for a group picture. Then also want to remind you that we have a wonderful opportunity here in the city of Pembroke Pines to immortalize veterans. And that is through the program here with our Veterans Memorial, which has bricks, as you'll notice, that lists the name of veterans. And you can immortalize those veterans in your life who are special to you. Dads, moms, grandmas, grandpas, brothers, sisters, uncles. We have a tent over to my left, to your right, that says Pembroke Pines Veteran Memorial. And you can go there and receive a form that you can sign up and sponsor someone for the memorial. And I hope you'll take time to do that today. Also, if you have already purchased bricks in the past and you have not received your small commemorative brick, I invite you to go over to the table. We have these, and undoubtedly we'll probably have yours there. This time, I'd like to once again invite all who would like to join me in the benediction today to once again bow your heads. God, we thank you so much for this opportunity today. We hope that our veterans have been honored, but every one of us here have been moved by, once again, remembering those who served so sacrificially with such uncompromised dedication in the armed forces of the United States. We just pray that your richest blessings will be upon every one of them and their families. And Lord, that every veteran will know that there's a city in South Florida called Pembroke Pines who will never forget their service and will always honor their service and their memory. And God, we ask your blessing to be on Mayor Ortis and this great commission who so faithfully every year make time and provide the resources for us to gather and celebrate this great occasion. Now, God, help every one of us as we leave this place to continue to serve our community, our country, and you, our God. For it's in your most holy name we pray. Amen. Amen. Once again, the band will share a final selection. God bless you all. Lunch will be served. And also remember the Veterans Group picture. Thank you. God bless you all. God bless America.